Welcome to the Picture This Photography podcast. I'm Chelsea, this is Tony, and this is our little fluff dog, Pixel.
She's going to be keeping me calm through this because I will undoubtedly get upset during this podcast.
Yes, because this podcast is about how someone stole our picture, put it on their product packaging, and then didn't care at all when we asked them about it. It cost them $60,000. They were the ones that got lawyers involved. We're going to go over what to do when your picture gets stolen, and you're going to hear all about what happened when they got lawyers involved and we had to take it to court in Australia, of all places. There's some interesting twists that happen in this one, and it took a long time for this to play out for us, so we finally get to talk about it with you. This story is brought to you by The Great Courses Plus. They're giving away a free trial to everyone listening at thegreatcoursesplus.com/Tony. You can click on the link in the description below. Let's get into it.
So May of 2016, somebody on Twitter or Instagram sends me this picture of this very fancy iPhone case that has a picture I took of you.
Yeah, it is just straight up my face.
And they're like, yeah, I saw this in Target in Australia. And I'm like, what? And normally, we sell stock photography. So normally when I see one of our pictures pop up in the middle of nowhere, I'm excited. Except we never sold this picture.
No, and we never sold it because it's our book cover. And so we wouldn't want other products or billboards or anything to have our book cover. That's some brand confusion. So this picture was never for sale.
And it was also an important picture to us because it's one of our most popular videos, is the creation of this picture. And it was a creative and challenging process that involved this big team effort. And it was definitely a more complex process than slapping on an iPhone case with some LED lights in it. And I was just so offended that they were using this photo to mislead people into thinking that this iPhone case could potentially take this picture.
You were offended. I was offended. It looks like I'm endorsing this thing that I definitely know would not work. So, one of my concerns was, well, first of all, they didn't pay for our picture. But secondly, are people going to recognize me and then think that I have something to do with this product?
Yeah, they did actually. They would write to us and be like, hey, is this really good? You guys must be endorsing this, right? And we're like, no, we've never heard of this. And no, I'm confident it won't take that picture. And in fact, we bought one and slapped it on your phone and you took a selfie. And I wanted to put the selfie in our slideshow here in the YouTube video.
And I said, you're like, how could you do this to me? What kind of husband?
Never share that picture.
I didn't even want you to send it to the lawyer. I was like, what? We all get it.
Okay, so we were upset about this. I found the company and I wrote them an email saying, I'm the photographer, I'm CCing the model. You didn't get our permission to do this. It's not cool. We're not selling the picture at any price. I don't want the products out there with the photos, but since it's already out there, I need to know exactly how many you sold, like what the wholesale price is, what the retail price is. Like I need to assess because we should get paid something for it since it's already out there. And I just did the beginnings of discovery.
Yes, and I think that's a good idea. If your photo's stolen, the first thing you should do is just reach out. Some people really don't know. I know it's sad and frustrating, but some people don't know they can't just take your photo. Mm-hmm. And once they find out, a lot of people will say, okay, I'll pay you. I didn't mean to steal from you, and I'll just give you money. I've heard so many photographers say they confront a person that took their picture and they just get paid for it, or the person takes it down and apologizes.
That's the way 90% of these cases go. They will just take it down right away and be like, I'm sorry. And that's usually the end of it. Or they'll be like, okay, maybe it's $500 or maybe it's a couple $1,000s or something that they'll just pay you outright to continue using the photo.
I was shocked by how they responded.
Yeah, first they didn't respond for a couple of weeks. And I'll give you this tip too. I wrote them asking them for detailed information. I gave them a deadline. I set a deadline. I said write back by, I think, June 15th, 2016. It was a couple of years ago. And because otherwise they might just blow you off. And because you didn't set a deadline, I said, if you don't write back by this time, then we will contact a lawyer.
So you have a little experience because when you were younger, you worked in a law firm.
Yeah, that's basically how I worked my way through college. I worked at, I did a lot of temp work, so I probably worked at a dozen different law firms. And that's also the reason that up until this point in my life, I'd never been involved in a lawsuit, even though I'd had plenty of opportunities, because I am not a litigious person. I hate the process. There are lots of lawyers that I like.
Paperwork? Like, wow, I would rather just steal my stuff. I don't want to do paperwork, right?
So the good news is if somebody steals your picture, you don't have to get involved in a lawsuit
No.
most of the time.
I think that's ideal. You definitely do not want to be involved in a lawsuit.
So June comes around and they finally write me back, but not the owner of the company who I wrote. He doesn't write me back.
No.
His law firm writes me back.
A lawyer. So at this point, I'm thinking, why would you do this? Why are you bringing lawyers into it? Maybe it actually was the right move for him. Maybe he didn't want to say the wrong thing. Maybe his lawyer usually scares people away. Sometimes people see things from a lawyer and they're like, whoa, scary. I'm just not going to talk to you anymore.
This is
Not
such a
me.
common tactic with lawyers. They will write you a letter and just hope that you don't want to get involved in the lawsuit.
Yeah.
So something on legal letterhead carries so much more weight than just an email from somebody. And I think that's the tactic they were going for. I don't know what they were thinking, but I will say it's common. And he says, our client was unaware that the graphic was being used, that the graphic being used was anything other than a stock photo. Our client used an external graphic designer. And they asked them about it afterwards, and they were informed that the graphic had been taken off of a website and incorporated into their advertising without checking.
Okay, so that website was just Google, because the first thing that comes up when you search ring light portrait is our picture. And if you click on it, it's from our YouTube video.
Yeah, it literally shows the thumbnail from the YouTube video that we showed a clip of earlier.
So one thing I would have done differently, I uploaded a high resolution photo so that all of you could look at it. You're photographers, you want to see the details. That worked against us because that high resolution photo is perfect for packaging on a product.
Well, it was just 1920 by 1080, I think.
High enough.
And then cropped from horizontal to vertical.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the product packaging, obviously their designer wasn't trying really hard to make this a good quality product. He literally just stole the first result from Google Images and slapped it on a product. So besides telling me...
There's a lesson there too, like, whoa, if you're a designer, make sure it's legal. And if you have a company and you have a designer, make sure everything they're doing is legal. Because their designer costs them. And their lawyer.
Yeah, and this happens too. This is something we deal with because we're a publisher too. And for example, I used a bit of clip art the other day, and often you will grab a free version of clip art, use it in your spreadsheet or your presentation or whatever, but then because you're not sure what's going to make the final cut, and then as the final step you go through and pay for all of the stock art that you might have in case it gets dropped before then, you don't want to pay for it and not use it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you'll hand it off to somebody and they'll just take it and run with the presentation and not realize that you hadn't cleared all the art that was in it. So this kind of thing can happen. If you hire an external designer, you need to verify that all the art and clip art and such has been paid for, that it has cleared, that it's free to use.
I'll use the watermark version until I'm ready to buy it for that purpose.
Yeah, though I will see product packaging that has little, like, I stock watermarks.
No, what?
It does happen on a regular basis.
You just
You'll see
blew
it
my
get right
mind.
through.
You just blew my mind.
So the fact that it was some external designer who did this, it makes no difference as far as this lawsuit goes, because it's still ultimately their responsibility for publishing it. Now they could turn around and then sue their designer after we sue them, but we're not going to be like, oh, okay. So
Oh my
I
gosh,
asked them.
haha, so silly. Let's all just walk away.
They then say that they have agreed to remove the graphic from their website where they were advertising it, their Facebook page, their Instagram feed, it was on all these places. They will recall all the products bearing the graphic to be disposed of. We hope that this course of action satisfies your request. And I wrote back and I said, well, no, that doesn't satisfy my request because I asked you specifically how many of these you manufactured and how many have you been sold, how many are already in. And they just ignored all those parts of my very specific email and hoped I would just go away. So I wrote back and I said, answer the rest of these questions or the next letter is from my lawyer. And they didn't get back to me. And
You guys,
I continue to get snapshots of these products on store shelves in Australia and New Zealand.
so you guys were a big part of this because they're telling us in Australia they're taking these things off the shelves, but then all of you helped us by just sending us photo after photo after photo and actually telling us the location. So they were saying, no, we're not selling them anymore. And we're saying, well, someone in Australia sent us this picture.
Yes,
What?
a lot of people did this. So we
You guys
decided.
are awesome. Moral of the story, you guys are awesome.
Yeah, we decided we had to lawyer up at this point. And that was easier said than done. If this had been a US company, it would have been way easier because I would just be dealing with US copyright law.
Yeah.
But because it was in a different country, and in fact, a couple of different countries, now I had to find an attorney in the country where I'd be filing the lawsuit, which is where the break in law happened. So I had to find an Australian attorney, which is difficult because there is a massive time difference. So things like me making phone calls in the middle of the day aren't going to get answered. And also, I need an attorney who's willing to take an international case like this. And I contacted, I don't know, 8 different law offices, and I got 0 responses back.
Seriously?
Some of them wrote back and just said, oh, this isn't the type of case that we handle. But I kept calling law firm after law firm after law firm, and I got nowhere.
So you make a really good point. This happened to be a more valuable case because it involved it being on a book and there were some damages for us. If there was really not a huge consequence to someone stealing your photo, it's really better to just have the person pay you and walk away, because otherwise it just gets more complicated and it doesn't necessarily bring you more money or anything. It just becomes more of a headache. Tony and I are stubborn people, and I think that we both are people that really want justice.
Yeah.
So at this point, it was not about money to us. We're just like, you can't steal from a photographer and expect 0 consequences. And then we also thought, this will be a good story.
Yeah, I will say the most common example I see here is somebody in their blog, they stole my picture from my website and just used it in their blog. And I wrote to them and they took it down. And should you then get a lawyer and hope to get $50,000 out of it? No.
It's not going to happen.
And in fact, your lawyer fees are almost certainly going to exceed whatever the amount that they would have paid you.
Yeah.
And so it's, plus all the stress.
The stress.
Often it's not worth it. And it sucks, but what can you do except really just hope, just have them take it down and go on with your life and put your energy into something productive, because it's usually an honest mistake. Mm-hmm. But we did decide to pursue this, and I ended up finding a firm that dealt with international intellectual property, specifically around stolen photos. That, like, this is their business model. They generally find lawyers who work as middlemen and file the lawsuits, and then they take a cut. And I'm not saying the name because I don't want to recommend them, because after this experience I don't feel comfortable recommending them, nor am I comfortable saying anything negative about it. It didn't work out great for me. I didn't hate them. But the situation was, they contact the lawyer. They're supposed to act as a middleman between myself and the lawyer. Whatever the settlement is, they subtract out our lawyer's fees, and then they cut the rest of the settlement in half. So I end up getting some fraction of what the actual settlement is. So I agreed to this.
We'll show you exactly how much that is.
Yeah.
But first, we want to plug our sponsor, The Great Courses Plus. The Great Courses Plus has on-demand video learning service, and it's brought to you, all of their lessons are brought to you by Ivy League professors and people that are the top experts in their field. They have unlimited access to a huge library of over 10,000 video lectures. There's so much content there, you can almost search anything and it will come up, including stuff about law. I checked to see if they had it there.
Yep.
I think they had 24 hours of law training videos. They have a ton of content from knowledgeable people. If you want to try your free trial, go to thegreatcoursesplus.com/Tony. You can hit the link in the description below to try it out.
Yeah, I'm lucky in that I had a background and some exposure to law and lawyers. So, but if you don't, then everybody should go through they have 48 30-minute courses that break the legal system down into small pieces and make it digestible. And I think that's great for anybody in any business, but especially people who might have to be involved in the legal system for something like intellectual property. It'll also help you understand, like CSI and other criminal shows that you see on TV. You'll instantly be able to smirk and be like, oh, that's not how it works. So that's a good reason, right?
Yeah.
You're a little snobby about TV.
Yeah, annoying your family, it's worth it.
And of course, they have a massive amount of photography tutorials, Lightroom, Photoshop tutorials, other post-processing tutorials. So check out thegreatcoursesplus.com/Tony. There's a link in the description. So July of 2016, our lawyers contact their lawyers.
And finally get those answers that you were looking for.
Yeah, they ended up answering my questions after all, it turns out. I'm a little smug about that because they just tried to blow me off. They manufactured 10,000 of these cases.
Wow.
And they were selling them for retail, I think they were $70 Australian.
It just annoyed me. It was also a ripoff. It was like a bad product. That part just also annoyed me, in my opinion.
So we're talking about 700,000 Australian dollars worth of products here. This is a big thing. all with our stolen photo on it. And they reported that they had already sold 4,893 of them. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but at this point, their attorney starts to try to convince us that they haven't actually made any money on it. They said that they had only made, I think, like $4,000 or $5,000 in profit, which is their way of saying, hey, that's their way of making a first offer. Like, I wouldn't be entitled to 100% of their profit, of course.
Yeah.
But some fraction of that. So they wanted to come in at like, $1,000, $2,000. And that's when they write the number on the piece of paper and slide it across the table in movies. Like, that's kind of that move. Like, we haven't really made any money.
Yeah, it's that move, except instead of a number, it's just like an old greasy French fry. And you're like, what is this? This isn't anything? Okay.
And they did classic lawyer moves, like they subtracted out arbitrary fees. They subtracted out the cost of destroying the remaining cases.
Why
like,
would we
I was
pay for
supposed to pay for that.
I'm not responsible for that.
So everybody is mad. At least, well, maybe it's just me. The lawyers probably don't care. They specifically write this. This is a quote. All infringing cases have been returned from the marketplace and will be destroyed.
Yeah, they're trying to charge us for the product that they're destroying and saying it's all being removed. Except you guys, you're awesome again because you just keep sending us pictures.
And I'm forwarding them on to my attorneys.
I was dying not being able to tell all of you what's going on because you're sending me pictures and we're just playing it cool. We're like, thank you. But really, we're like, our audience is the best. They are saving our butts right now and they're doing really cool stuff for us.
Yeah, and our attorneys, they'll go down to Target and be like, yeah, it's on the shelf right now. I can't believe they told me they pulled them all from the shelves and I can go see it. Like, if you're going to lie, don't lie in such a way that's so easy to prove.
They're just, I guess, hoping people were lazy.
Yeah, we have so many examples of people sending it in. There it is,
I like how it's
$70.
It goes on sale at some point, and I'm like,
August 2016, we just saw this
in a store in New Zealand.
Thank you, Sasheen, for sending that to us. January 2017, can you believe the case is still going on in January?
Okay, so that's one of the reasons you really want to avoid a lawsuit. It just goes on forever. Why does it take so long?
Mm-hmm. And it's this thing that's like stressing you out all the time. Still getting pictures of it in January. This person, Alessandro, writes, Halo case stole your face. And then there's just a big stack of them. Yeah, now they're on sale for some smaller amount of money.
They're probably trying to move the merchandise so they don't have to destroy it.
Yeah, well, more than likely, they shipped it out to distributors, and I would bet that they didn't want to contact all the retailers and say, hey, we need you to pull these off the shelves, because that would probably wreck their relationship with them.
Yeah.
So they're just like, we're just going to let the retailers sell them and hope that this thing blows over.
Yeah.
Because their whole defense seemed to be like, I hope they just forget about this. We finally come to a settlement in March of 2017, most of a year later. We are to receive 4 payments of 10,000 Australian dollars. Which is
like $7,000 US dollars or something?
That's 40,000. So it's like 30,000 and change US.
Okay.
And in June of 17, we finally received the payment. I finally just agreed to this, even though I'm not happy with it. I'm sure they're not happy with it, but that's like the sign of a proper negotiation is both sides are unhappy with the settlement.
Yeah.
And as part of it, like, we just call it even, like whatever they have on the shelf. Like, they've said they removed it, they clearly didn't, but we're just going to forget about all that and just all get on with our lives. I
was just too entertained by just how blatantly disrespectful they were to even be that mad. I was just like, oh, they're really trying to go with this. Like, there are people like that. Okay, noted. Learn something.
And this is the way most lawsuits end. You don't end with like a high five and a huge paycheck. No. You end angry and disappointed and like, why did I put so much energy and stress into this? I didn't expect anything, so that's where I was coming from. Okay. Let's see the breakdown. So $40,000 were supposed to be paid. Here's our actual bank statement. It amounts to $7,543.48. But they settled for $40,000? Yeah, 40,000 Australian, which is like 30,000 and change. Wait, they settled for 60,000. They settled for 40,000. Oh, okay. The $60,000 number for the title is me, adding in my estimate of what their legal fees must have been.
Okay.
Because they obviously had to pay their own lawyer quite a bit, and we had to pay our lawyers. And it turns out from this pie chart that I made that the lawyers end up taking almost all the money in this.
That's why people don't like lawyers. No offense, lawyers. Don't get mad.
So if our lawyers charge us about $20,000, and it's that fee that ends up settling most lawsuits, because like I said, in a negotiation, neither side ends up happy with it. But at some point you look at your law bill, your legal bill, and you're like, this is costing me way more than I'm going to possibly get out of it.
You see that happen with divorces a lot. I've heard of people getting so bitter in divorces that they end up paying their lawyer more than they would have paid their spouse if they had just paid them.
Yeah, you end up hiring lawyers to fight over the $20,000 you have in savings, and then the lawyers end up costing you $40,000, and you're like, there's nothing to fight over now.
They're really crafty ones. You know, they're like,
done.
You're not just going to let her get away with that, are you? Let's talk about it.
I hate lawsuits. So our lawyers took $20,000. I'm estimating their lawyers took $20,000, but realistically, they probably paid their lawyers more because they were involved in the case longer. Like, they had to deal with me beforehand. They had to go through and actually dig up numbers and do research. And our middleman took half of the remaining amount. So $40,000 was the settlement. Lawyers took $20,000. Our middleman took half of the remaining. So our middleman took 10,000 Australian, and then we got 10,000 Australian, which converts down to it's like 7,500 US. So after all of that, would you say that was worth it? I mean, $7,500 is a lot of money for a picture.
Yeah, but if we had just gotten paid, it would have been a fun shoot if they had just done it legally. And it was super stressful. It wasn't like the lawyers did all the work. We had to do a lot of work. Like, we had to take time. We could have been actually producing something we liked. I don't want to sue anybody. That's like negative feelings I don't want to deal with. So for me, the cost of the stress and having to dig up things, the lawyer's asking questions, and you have to go try to dig up these numbers and stuff and estimate, and it was stressful. It was not worth it. That is not my way of making money. I'd rather just do an honest photo shoot with a good client, and that's it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fun, right? And there's nothing fun about a lawsuit, which is why I would always prefer to avoid them. Anyway, I also don't, if their story is true that their designer just used a photo and they didn't think to double check it, I don't think the punishment necessarily fits the crime. Like, if they had to pay $60,000 for that, that's overkill for not clearing a photo.
Yeah, but why not just level with us when we're like, hey guys, what happened? Why not be like, oh no, our mistake. Like, we want to pay you. We want to make it right. Let's come to an agreement. Let's not bring lawyers into this. To come back at us and with a letter from a lawyer, to me, that was the most shocking thing of all. I'm thinking, how is it benefiting you to bring a lawyer into it? You're the guilty one.
Yeah, all they had to do was write back and be like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed right now. I can't believe we let this happen. I'm so sorry that we took your picture. No. A letterhead. Okay, so that sums it up. That's how much money we got.
So that sums it up. You should get something if someone steals your photo. Try to keep lawyers out of it. If you do need to bring lawyers into it, you'll have to find one in the country where the offender has their business, so it can be really challenging. It's a lot of work and a lot of stress, but if you really do that money and your photo's worth enough to make it worth it, you can get something in the end.
And can I just say that how much you get is going to be based on either the damages that they've done to you, if they've actually cost you some amount of money that you can quantify, but that's not usually how it's going to work. So if it's not that, then it's going to be based on how much that picture would be worth if they had just bought it.
Yeah.
Perhaps a little bit more in damages since they didn't legally clear it from you. And stock photography is really cheap. So if somebody throws up your picture on a blog, that stock photo might cost them $1, it might cost them $5.
Yeah, if we had been selling this as a stock photo, it would have gone completely differently.
Yeah, so as part of us establishing that $40,000 settlement, we had to go through and I couldn't just say, hey, this sucks, they stole our photo. That wasn't enough. We had to create scenarios where we would go out and custom take a photo for them, and what would we charge for that? And that's ultimately what that $40,000 number ended up being based on, is what the cost would be to make a custom photo of this quality for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like you would think it would work.
No.
And this is based on Australian law, so things might have been a little bit different in the United States. I had to actually spend a lot of time researching Australian law to figure out how this would work. Even though I had lawyers and stuff, like you have to be able to speak to the lawyers, and you end up providing all this sort of information. So it was a lot of work. If you want to know a lot about law,
Or photography.
or science, or many other topics, the Great Courses Plus has lots and lots of free video training, and you can get a free trial and just try it out. Head over to thegreatcoursesplus.com/Tony for your free trial. Check out the content. I think you'll find that the content is pretty awesome. Well organized, which is something YouTube lacks entirely. Like they just have like their legal
Whoa,
course.
we don't have to put down YouTube.
YouTube is scattered and disorganized, and learning something is really hard when you just watch random videos from a subscriber feed, right? But the Great Courses Plus,
How stupid. I'm going to sue you now.
you will find 48 30-minute videos covering all the basics that every citizen should know about law.
Yeah.
And you could get through it in a couple of weeks of just watching it in your free time. And suddenly you'd be the biggest legal expert that you probably know, and you'd be well equipped to handle yourself in a variety of different legal cases and to break down every legal movie that you watch. And they have that stuff for, like I said, science and photography too. So thank you to our sponsor, thegreatcoursesplus.com/Tony.
Also, let us know, has someone stolen your picture? Did you pursue it? How did it work out for you? Tell us in the comments below. I'm curious if anyone else has had a big case like this, or if people have blown you off or gotten lawyers involved before you did. Is this typical? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks. See you next time.
You know what I just realized?
What?
We also had to pay taxes on that money. So we ended up only clearing like $3,000, $3,500 probably. Infuriating. Okay, bye.
You just keep adding more. Anything else?